And start now. Cool. Okay, so yeah, thanks everyone for joining this webinar about COVID-19, the current crisis, and being able to talk more about what AI can do in these uncertain times. It's going to be hopefully a long-running kind of webinar series where we'll talk to other places and people about how AI works and how AI can help in the future, in the near future and long term as well. So to get things started, let me introduce everybody here. So I'm Eduardo Gonzalez, VP of Engineering at Skymind, and with me is KT from Huawei and Dr. Chai from HY Medical. So yeah, so let me, so I'll be emceeing this. I'll kind of talk about the different topics and let everybody chime in. So first I would like to mention about Axial's recent development. We deployed a system that we helped develop over in China into the KL hospitals, and it uses CT scans to help detect COVID and pneumonia and help people in the recovery process. So first I'd like to ask, Dr. Chai, how important is CT scans in the diagnosis and treatment of this disease? And how was your experience of it over there in Wuhan?
Oh, yeah. It's a great opportunity for me. I can briefly introduce what happened in China and also some our experience working with the hospitals. And but basically we are working on this AI for the CT imaging. But and I mentioned, actually the CT scanning play very important roles in China for this COVID-19 screening and diagnosis. And because in China there are totally the 7th version of the guideline of this prevention treatment, and actually starting from the 5th version, the CT scan was added into their main working flow. Actually, the reason is that at that moment there is low availability of the PCR nucleic acid test, and also they found out in the PCR test, the nucleic acid test have very low false negative. It means actually in the around more than 20% of the case cannot be detected in the first test. So that what they did, especially in Hubei, Wuhan, they consider the combined solution, combining CT with nucleic acid test. And then usually when this patient has some symptom, they will immediately first get CT scan to make sure no one has some pneumonia infection or missed. Then in that patient, then they will do the further nucleic acid test. That's basically the whole procedure what they did in the Hubei, Wuhan, even in entire China. Yeah.
I see. And so to do that, it wasn't just CT scans, right? It was also AI kind of helping the doctors out with diagnosing the patients, right?
Yeah. And actually, after that, we also find out some of our collaboration hospitals, our customer, they find out because they all set some special CT to do this screening. But the one problem is that they are doing so hundreds of scans every day, and there are really big pressure on reading the image immediately, and also in some hospital out of the Hubei, actually there are a lot of radiologists that they don't have that much experience on reading this new type of disease. So then we developed this AI assisted diagnosis system, and a couple of things we can do. We can help this whole procedure. One is during a scan, we can immediately detect which one has a highly suspicious patient, and only after 30 seconds after scanning. And at that moment, then the technician can quickly find out suspicious patient. Then they can do some special protection, observation, and also the some special deep cleaning of this CT machine, and to prevent some in-hospital cross infection. And after that, during the diagnosis, our system can really precisely doing the segmentation of the lesion, and also really give their very accurate possibility of the COVID-19 out of the other types of the pneumonia. And we found out the sensitivity of the detection using AI can achieve up to 96%. And also in some cases, like not only China, but also some like European country, in their cases, when they already diagnosed as a COVID-19, they always do multiple CT scans, and we can automatically do the follow-up to automatically track how it's a lesion, this infection, the progress, and also give how severe is the patient, and give the doctor some priority and some suggestion, and which one should have the higher priority to get the more intensive care. Yeah, that's basically what AI can do. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Not only in just helping the doctors in general, but when you think about it, in a crisis like this, nobody studied COVID-19 in school, right? So this is all very new to everybody. Yeah. So being able to share that knowledge, not only through papers, which take a long time to understand and read, which you don't have a lot of time in during the crisis, but also to really help them in the front line with these suggestions and segmenting, I think is a really way of efficiently sharing knowledge in a sense, even though we don't really think of AI as knowledge so much. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit to KT from Huawei. So how is Huawei kind of helping out during this crisis with the technologies that Huawei has?
So when we look into this COVID-19, right, I suppose worldwide we are facing the same problem, right? So how we are going to detect the virus, how we prevent it from happening again, right? What is the effective way to get treatments, right? Beside that, this is the daily conduct from the medical side. But how about the other part of it? We are talking about the students, how they can continue their learning in the house, right? How is this lifestyle going to carry on, right? And most importantly is the market now is stagnant, right? How the enterprise in the market continue to survive with the help from the government, how the government able to help assist. When it comes to these pictures, what we see is, yes, we are working together with the partners like Skymind, like the Huawei and things like that, right, to come up with the interesting solutions, how to help the doctors effectively, efficiently detect the virus, right, through the AI scanning, right, through the AI detections. And also at the same time, we are also helping, for example, in the state of Sarawak, right, the government have a struggling process to control the spread of this COVID-19, right? So they are trying to find the best way how to tackle it, right? We work together with the local ISV, right, with the local application providers, right? Make sure that with the AI we can render the services, service for them, right? They can create a tracking app for the people to use, so that the people, whoever that going on site, when they go to on street, they go to visual shop, they were able to check in the place. With this process, right, the government will able to understand where is the whereabouts of the citizen, and at the same time, they were able to tell the citizen which area is a severe areas for the infections, right? And this will give the kind of warnings that the citizens should be avoiding going there, right? They're also able to provide this emergency contact. If they really face a problem on the spot, what are they going to do, right? So all these must be supported with the OCR capability to scan on the IC to ensure that this is a valid person, the real persons that being checked in, and then with the facial recognitions that you were able to correlate the ID scanning and the persons to ensure that the right ID is the right person is doing their work, reporting to the government. At the same time, for the government to understand their actual identity, to identify the surrounding people that connected to them if they are detected infected virus. So on this other side, when we talk about the educations, right? So nowadays, students are locking the home, right? All the kids are doing nothing in the home, right? What to keep the kids alert and what to keep the kids learning is via the online education, right? So this is one way how we're able to introduce online learning for the kids, right? It's a time to guide them the latest technologies, maybe from the AI, how the AI can create some interesting learning stuff, life cycles of the animals are growing on the screen, right? So the online learning platform, you're able to enable the student, let them feel they are more interactive, generating their interest, then improve the learning experience. Then the last one, I will suppose, is on the enterprise. When we talk about the enterprise, this is the worst hit in the market, right? Because everybody have to close shop, right? Stay at home, right? What happened to them? Today, they are conducting their business inside this outlet. But once go out from the outlet, right? They have nowhere to go. So what we can do with it? So how AI can help them, right? From these angles, what we're doing is we are taking this moment, right, to introduce this AI for the enterprise through some finished application or developed application by the partners, right? So that they were able to use, for example, a collaborative tools as free, right? That they are able to use these learning tools as free, right? So for them to really times for them to do their transformations, right? For them to realize, for them to alert that it's time that they have to conduct their business differently, digitally, online, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a really important part of the future, I think, for at least 2020, but maybe even into 2021, where I think it will, to prevent the spread of the virus or the resurgence of the virus, companies need to kind of understand that the customers are going to start demanding, really, that they are able to do business with you without going to your stores or working with your customer representatives, right? So more and more of customer service is going to start becoming chatbots instead of call centers, right? More of the business you do of, for example, like verification, like KT said, we're going to have to make those IT systems. And an interesting thing, I think, is, traditional IT, the grandmas and grandfathers of the world who don't know computers very well, always have problems with IT because it can be quite complicated. And AI is an important part of making that bridge, right? It's not personal, but it's more personal than your traditional IT systems. I think that's really important going forward. And over here, I also want to say that in my company, which is Express AI, we're working with Skymind and Huawei to really help businesses make this transition. I think it's a new transition where if you want to have not impersonal business, but a more kind of personalized IT system for allowing your customers to self-service more, AI can help with that. And things like our smart OCR thing that we're doing allows you to allow people to scan images with their phone and then have the system automatically recognize the person's name and number and do all the verification that you need to do. We can do this without having to create huge IT investments because things like Huawei Cloud and the cloud in general make it easy to spin up these temporary resources so that once the crisis is over, if you need to scale that down, you can. But I think we're not sure like what normal is going to be like. One thing I think of is when I watch movies now, it's kind of strange to see people using or just like going to stores or going to the movies without masks on. I'm wondering, Dr. Chai, do you have similar experience over there in China? Like, is it kind of weird, even though now things are dying down? Is it still not normal, right?
Well, even especially in Beijing, it's everywhere. It's everybody all go out of any public place, like any building, even on the street, they all wear the mask, mouth mask. It's and also I think basically the traveling within each province is okay, but as long as you travel cross province, actually as long as you go to any neighborhood or some building, you have to do a lot of tests. It's not when the temporary, and also we have always to scan the barcode to track whether you go to somewhere out of this province during past 14 days. And also usually we have to scan like twice. One where did you travel? Another one sort of give you your healthy status. So, it's still not very convenient. Yeah, along that you go to anywhere, even you go to some restaurant, anywhere it's a lot of things. You have to always report your status, and lot of things are being checked. Yeah, but I think most people can understand and accept that. Yeah, even somewhere, even when we go to the elevator, we found somebody didn't wear the mouth mask, and other people wear it. Wow, you should do that. Yeah, so that's a sort of become normal life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And these measures, I think, are actually kind of required. So currently, Malaysia is completely under the MCO lockdown style. I'm not sure if I should call it a law, but kind of the current state where movements and businesses are very limited because of the movement control order. But if we leverage, the IT systems like the ones currently in China, you can responsibly open up the country to business and still be on top of controlling the virus, right? So I think it's important that governments kind of look into perhaps using IT to help give us the superpowers that allow us to do this kind of communication that needs to happen to prevent the spread of the virus, but also allow businesses to continue because the hit to the economy is already really large, and it's only going to get worse in the future. So I think Huawei has been doing, like you said, being able to scan IC cards and keep checks of people using their mobile phone, which is an almost ubiquitous device these days, is an important part of staying on top of the virus. And I really hope that the movement control order lifts up very soon so that we can kind of resume our normal lives, or maybe not the normal lives, but at least a less restricted life that makes business very difficult.
Yeah. Maybe I just add on, right?
Yeah.
So perhaps maybe I think at this moment towards the opening, reopen of the stopping of the MCO, I suppose there's two angles that as a technology company that we can really help the governments and also the enterprise in the industry, right? So for the governments, I will suppose what we can do is we continue to render the AI, continue to render the IT technologies in order for people to learn online, for the governments to automate their process online, right? So I will suppose this, and also the communication online. So I will suppose this is the best channels that we can reach everyone inclusively, right? Then for the enterprise, I will suppose the most important moments is to help to keep the organization running in this difficult time. Right? So for that, I will suppose we have a campaign on the enterprise on cloud. So we hope that using these campaigns, we are able to render our hands to the people that need help, right? To the enterprise that required some form of transformation. We make sure that they were able to move their business online, right? Make sure that they were able to use some form of technology, and especially on the AI to faster their transformation so that they were able to resume their business online. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, and us at Skymind over here in Malaysia and the other kind of group companies that Skymind works with are all ready to help, right? So like if anybody listening wants to talk more, we're happy to kind of talk to you about it, explain it, identify the things where AI can help make those first steps, and work on it together with our partners, including Huawei and everybody else. So yeah, so last few minutes, we're almost, about 6 minutes away. I'd like to do Q&A. So hopefully the people here have given me some of the questions that we've seen from the audience, and we can hopefully answer them. So one question that we have here that actually comes up a lot is, can you use X-rays instead of CT scans for the detection of COVID and things like that? So yeah, that's a question that comes up a lot. So Dr. Chai, can you kind of explain your thoughts on X-rays versus CT scans?
Okay. So actually, basically, I know in a lot of countries using X-ray for this pneumonia detection is very popular, even more popular than CT. But if you want to distinguish this different type of pneumonia, it's a COVID-19 or other type of the virus infection, and basically the CT doesn't work. Sorry, X-ray doesn't work on that. Yeah, and X-ray only can detect whether it have the pneumonia infection or not. But for the further classification, only CT can do that. Yeah, and because on CT, basically, it's especially in the early stage of the this COVID-19, there are some kind of very typical patterns on CT. Usually, we call it multiple. It's called the GGO. It's a ground glass opacity, and that is very typical patterns for the early stage patient. And also, there are a couple of patterns on there that are really a typical one. And on CT, actually, there maybe later I can send you some. Even in the UK, the college, the community of the radiology just released some documentation on this, shows what type of patterns. It's really the typical one for the COVID-19. It can cover almost 80% of the patient. Yeah. But for X-ray, it really cannot see very obvious special patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing that, wait, let me mute real quick. Yeah, so one thing that not a lot of people understand about CT scans is CT scans are three-dimensional, right? So it not only allows you to see the lung, but you can kind of see every millimeter slice of the lung, and that kind of high resolution and rich data is really kind of required to get down into the lung and to see specifically what's happening in there. And X-rays, they essentially, go through your entire lung and you only have like one X-ray. So yeah, in terms of the amount of data, it's completely different. Like one is just a little picture, and then the other is a whole 3D representation of every section of your lung. So yeah, it makes sense that for doctors to really distinguish between these two diseases that cause pneumonia, right? Having a high resolution is probably key to being able to do that. Okay, and let's see. So one other question that we actually got, which was very interesting, and I think KT will be a good one to answer that, is how can I prepare my children to work in a future with AI? So that's actually a very interesting question. One thing I like to think of when I'm thinking of the future and the future of my children, it's an interesting thought that somebody told me once, which was, 30 years ago, a lot of jobs that exist today did not exist back then, right? And so, of course, lawyers, doctors, these are jobs that have existed for many hundreds of years. But for me, previously as a data scientist, that wasn't something that existed 30 years ago. And maybe 30 years from now, we're going to have people who are like, I don't know, maybe space station logistics analysts, right? And you can't really train for that today. So I would say, the most important thing that you can do today for your kids is to not force them down a certain path, and instead have them make sure that they understand fundamentals and things like that. It's probably very important. And KT, you were saying also learning online. So I think now is a very important time for our children, mainly because another anecdote that I've heard before is that Newton developed calculus and also a lot of the theories of lensing while he was in quarantine due to the plague way back in the 1700s or so, I think. So yeah, continuing education and access to that online is probably a very important part of, it's one of those important steps that you can do today to make sure that your kids are prepared for the future. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. So basically, at these quarantine periods, the kids have nowhere to go, right? This is where you can catch their attention, right? But catching the attention today, yes, on one side in Malaysia here, we don't have the real this online learning solutions available, right, for the kids. But I would suppose the industry is trying to introduce some form of digital medias for the kids to read, to understand. But however, when you come to the kids, right, their attention to this application is very short, right? Because the material is down, right? Less of animations, right? They can't really interact, right? So when this come to pictures, it become very bored to them, right? So with the AI's implementing, right, it give this learning experience is much more interesting, right? So for example, why not when you are learning how to make a cup, right? Then you by pressing your hand on the screen, right, the cup will become a video process, right, or the cartoon process to tell you how they evolve become a cup, right? So and in the process, right, they were able to read your face expression, then to give you a different reactions, right? This is what AI can do. When the different reaction happens, this is where you can see there's an interaction between the kids and the screen, right? So the kids no longer seeing a screen, a code machine, but instead they see something responding to them. This will continue to carry on their interest, right? So on the other side of it, when we are looking into currently there's a solution in the markets, right? There's also a school that using this online application to do secondary primary school learning. But unfortunately, today's these students never before exposing to this kind of applications, right? they found very confusing, right? They are unable to understand, apprehend the application in order for them to carry on their learning, right? So when they have this in the pictures, why not when the learning platform is ready, right? You can change the learning from the digital medias in the text form, right? In the pictures form into the VR, right? So with the VR, we can give them a different experience, right? They can survey, interact in their virtual world, right? So with them, they no more confused in their learning. So this is another way how to excite the kids, right? How to make them interact and cultivate their interest on continued learning. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So we're at time, but there was one question in YouTube that was incredibly interesting that I think we want to maybe see if we can answer it, which was, what would the economic impact be if the government were to adopt AI to make fiscal monetary policies? And are there any case studies of this? And that's a really interesting question. I know, at least, there are some companies, companies like PwC, who kind of estimate that because of AI, right, global GDP will increase like 14%, right, which is like, like 16 or 17 trillion US dollars, right, by 2030. And that's a huge kind of economic impact that I think, AI can make. And so, leveraging that to, having governments leverage that themselves would probably even make that an even bigger number, I think. But I don't think there's any case studies that or at least I'm not familiar with any case studies of governments who have, used AI to discern monetary policy. Do you, KT or Dr. Chai, know of any kind of monetary policy case studies? I'm not sure. That's an interesting question. So
maybe yeah, maybe in term of these policies, I would suppose it'll be a bit more complex to answer in these short times, right?
Yeah.
Some of these cases on the case study could be bring up, right? How AI can actually help to achieve this kind of tremendous growth in the economy, right? So especially at this moment, right? Everybody is locked down, right? How to revive the economy in order to make it more interactive and automated, right? So when we look into this, basically we have personally in Huawei, we have different cases around the regions, right? That practicing, for example, with the Movista, right? So which Movista is the #1 mobile advertisements provider in China, right? So what happened is they continue, but they are struggling this offline advertisement or the one-way advertisement saturated, right? So what they did is basically they changed the advertisements modes online, right? Using Huawei Cloud, right? And also using this facial expressions, right? Facial recognition, right? Kind of functionalities in the AI, right? In order to respond a different advertisement that will reflect to the interest of the person that's staring on the screen, right? So this help them to improve their marketing eyeballs, right, by a lot more than millions, right? So compared to when they are going through the normal way of advertising, right? So another way is when we talk about these entertainments, right? So today, people is going to the movie, to the cinemas, right? So you just imagine when you go to the cinemas, you need to do a long queue, and there's probably not enough space for you. Then you have to requeue again, even though there's a mobile apps for you to do advanced booking, but there's a tendency that you can't book, right? So what happened is with the application that share it and things like that, right? they were able to make some of the movies available online for them to see, right? For them to watch, for them to, and the most important thing is, right, we can make, from the movie contents, they can make the contents friendly to different races. For example, right, if you are watching an English movie, but you are a Chinese, which you only know a Chinese language, right? You were able, they're based on your profile selected, right? They're able to reflect automatically with these Chinese subtitles, right, for your understanding on the movie. So this one will continue to help you to help these cinemas to monetize, right, with the online and offline digital twin concept, right? So when you're talking about, for example, another areas is on the government side, right? On the government side, in order to make to activate the market, to make the market more interesting, right? I will suppose, right, the government process is one of the process that we had to handle so that we can shorten the lengthy process into efficient way, right? So for example, in here, what we did before is with this one of these farmers in the brew, I think is in the Cambodia, right? So what happens if we use the OCR to help them to scan and make efficient of this identity process for the farmers, right? So that they were able to get the approval of the application is more accurately and in a shorter time frame, right? Help to expedite the whole delivery process from the government to render the financing scheme to the farmers, right? These are all the possible case studies. It's already happened now, right?
Yeah.
So how to make it happen in Malaysia is the next one.
Yep. And we're definitely happy to talk about all of those things because all this stuff is all possible and being worked on right now. So I think all we need to do now is to get talking and kind of leverage. There's a crisis is also an opportunity to enact change, and I think this is we should look at it as where we can as an opportunity to really advance our own countries, help kickstart our economies again, and kind of bring us back to the normal that we used to know. So I think with that, we'll end this webinar here a little bit late. Very many apologies for that, but we got really great questions there at the end. So hopefully if you like this webinar, please give it a like on the YouTube, let us know, and we will continue on with this series pretty soon, I think in a week or two, and we'll have other people talk about more things that you can do with AI and get everybody back to the normal life. Okay, so I want to thank our guests today, KT and Dr. Chai. Thank you very much for coming over here today to talk with me for this webinar. Okay, so thanks everybody.
And thanks. Right, thanks
to you guys
everyone
later.
again.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, yeah, bye.
Bye.